Hello everybody, and today we are going to be talking about the highest rated anime now at the moment, and I hope forever, Oshi No Ko. If you have not watched episode 1, what are you doing? And if you haven't and are impatient like I am, please read the manga. It is amazing. Now, to call it all depression would be a lie, because there is some hilarious moments. It is a lot of sadness at very random point. So I got to give it to Aka for some great story writing. After Kaguya, I thought it wasn't going to be something so dark and kind of brooding, but more of a rom-com or like a Love Live situation where the biggest beef they'll have is at the end of the year when they have their sixth school battle and have to battle all the rival idol groups to realize that friendship is the key to victory, and that regardless if they win or lose, they're always going to be a group of friends that stick together. But to start, you meet Goro and his former patient, Serena. Serena is a big fan of this idol group named B Komachi, and the frontrunner of that group is Ai Hoshino, her favorite idol. Unfortunately, Serena is terminally ill, so this is the only way she gets her enjoyment because she doesn't leave her hospital room very often. But Goro also takes a liking to this because of her passion for these idols and how much she talks about them. And she poses the question to Goro, haven't you thought about if you were a celebrity's kid, all the connections, the wealth, the fame? And that flash forwards us to the present, where we see Goro tending to his next patient, who happens to be the frontrunner for B Komachi herself, Ai Hoshino, accompanied by her manager Ichigo, who, by the way, is a great character. Like, he's a bit, he's not, I wouldn't say out there, but he's a great character. He has some great lines. Like, for example, when he was asking if the pregnancy was just constipation, I thought was funny. But no, she is 20 weeks pregnant and is given the task of deciding whether or not she wants to have these twins, because spoiler alert, she has twins, or does she want to give them up so that way she can continue her idol career. And on the rooftop, she finds Goro and talks with him about it because she lets him in on the fact that she never had a family of her own. So she would like to give this as an opportunity to build that family herself with her twin children, and wants to go through with it and continue idling, because in her words, Ai Hoshino is a greedy girl, which, but when Ri Takahashi says it, it's, you move. And throughout the pregnancy montage they do, because yes, they do a pregnancy montage, we slowly learn that they're kind of deepening their bond in a sense, Goro and I, but like not in like any other like deeper sense than like doctor and patient confidentiality. And then on the last day when she's about to give birth, before leaving the hospital room, Goro says to Ai, call if anything, if anything comes up where water breaks or anything and she's about to have the kids. She has his number because she only wants him to deliver these kids and no one else, because on that rooftop, he promised that they would have a safe delivery and these babies would be healthy. On his way out that night, he stumbles into a man dressed in all black with a hood covering his eyes, asking if he is Ai Hoshino's doctor. And before he gets to ask him who he is, he goes darting off into the forest. As Goro gives chase, he comes upon a steep cliff. That steep cliff, unfortunately, is where he has his untimely death, when the man in all black pushes him off the cliff, landing headfirst, killing him instantly. But before he dies, the last thought of what if I was born as a celebrity's child enters his head, and as he enters and sees this bright light, he comes out as one of two of Ai Hoshino's babies, who is hilariously named Aquamarine. Like, I think if I had a child and I wanted to give it a name that was so pointless, I would probably definitely name it Aquamarine. And there is also one more child that she had, because twins, and that one is named Ruby, who as he is getting born and as you see him when he's in baby form, he would like to change his name to Ruby, which I also thought was really funny. But basically throughout, you get a little montage of them growing up, them kind of going through the motions of children, even though they both have their thoughts from when they died, because both of them are reincarnated people. So Goro has all his thoughts of when he was a OBGYN and his knowledge leading up into adulthood, up until his passing. And Ruby, being Serena, has all her thoughts up until she passed away, but she can still communicate, and he can still communicate in full sentences, which is really funny when you get down to some of the other scenes that come up. And then Ichigo's wife, Miyuki, has to take care of them because no one can figure out Ai is a mother. And it's just the calamity that ensues with all of this. Some of the highlights, in my personal opinion, include when they're going to her first, well, not first, but a small idol concert she's hosting to get the name of Beat Komachi put up. And the babies proceed to do a full idol routine in the stands with glow sticks and pacifiers and all. I will put a gif, I think, somewhere over here, maybe, if I can find the clip. But hilarious stuff. Throughout the story, Ai Hoshino starts gaining more and more popularity after these concerts because she's just simply captivating to so many people. And one of the things, which I think is hilarious, is she gets scouted for a minor role in a drama. And the director is hilarious as well. I think such a good character, up there with like Ichigo, but personally I think the director is the best. Aqua is second. Usually I don't like the main MCs because a lot of them are boring, but Aqua is definitely one of those that breaks the mold. But the director bumps into Aqua as he's leaving the set, and Aqua just starts apologizing to him in full sentences in perfect English that a toddler should not be speaking. And the first thing he does is, after Aqua explains that YouTube has taught him to talk like this, the first thing he does is says, "This is a sign of the times," and then proceeds to hand the child, who's probably like 3 or 4 at the time, a business card to call him back whenever he is needed. As they watch the premiere of the episode that Ai is in, he calls the director after noticing her scene was cut completely to berate him and ask him why Ai isn't completely in the scene like they recorded. And he basically explains that she is too captivating and cute for the cameras, that it takes away from their main star, who's the bill of the show. And this is where it gets darker. As Ai is skyrocketing in popularity and her name is getting everywhere, there's a scene where she's calling from a payphone to talk to the father of her 2 children, who are now old enough to ask and question where her father is, which is also a very funny scene because they don't want to assume that she actually has a father, but actually it was just like a virgin pregnancy, I believe they called it, or something along those lines, where there was no man involved, which is really funny coming from diehard stan children. But she, in a payphone, calls the father to basically say, "Hey, the kids are old enough now and they're starting to question things. Would you like to meet them? Here's our new address," because they moved from their prior address to their new address. And you don't hear the conversation. You don't hear the man's voice, nothing. You just hear her basically give the new address, and then it just stops, and they cut to a penthouse party where Ichigo is blasted out of his mind, trying to celebrate the success, when he tells Ai to not get the father involved at all. And this is when it gets even darker. There's a point where they're at the house alone, their new house, I'm pretty sure. And Ai hears a knock or the doorbell ring, I can't remember which one. And as she goes to get the door, the same man who killed Goro at the hospital is there with a bouquet of flowers with a knife behind it and says, "How are the twins?" before stabbing Ai in the stomach and basically giving her a fatal enough wound to kill her ultimately. And after she's sitting there bleeding out and he rants on her, calling her all these derogatory names and such, she basically remembers who he was from the fan meet and greets that he used to attend, which leaves him mind broken because now he thought that this woman who doesn't remember anybody, who just does it for the money and fame, actually recognizes her fans, and even has the gift, which was the sparkly sand, on her mantle in her den as she's bleeding out in her, I would say, like, it was like the entryway, I would say. She's bleeding out in the entryway with Aqua literally right there witnessing his mom just bleeding out right there, which traumatic. After realizing that, he runs out covered in blood screaming and basically crying because he just realized what he did was super just it was a lapse in judgment in his mind. And she is ultimately bleeding out and passing away right in front of them. It's almost kind of like she expected to die. Like, idols aren't supposed to have long careers anyway, and when they end, it's always like they end up in bars as like the girls that drink with the older men to get more money or stuff like that. But she figured she was gonna die somehow, which is really eerie and weird. And she's basically holding Aqua, I almost said Ruby, Aqua, just covered in blood. He has blood all over the side of his face. There's like this eerie handprint going down the glass leading into the living room where Ruby is, who is unaware of what's happening, but she is already at the door asking her mom what's going on. And she basically says, oh, I hope, you know, she lists off that she wanted to see them wear their backpacks to elementary school, see them grow up, hoping that, you know, maybe she could have saw Aqua become an actor or seen Ruby become an idol and things like that, before ultimately that spark in her eye turns to just jet black and she passes away, which sends a huge shockwave throughout the idol scene. Fans crying in front of the Dome show that was going to happen that day. Side note, I forgot to mention, I'm very bad. I apologize. They were going to do a Dome show that day, and before the Dome show, she tweeted, oh, excited for the Dome show, and then ultimately died, which led to the cancellation of that Dome show and leaving the fans left in mourning just in front of the Dome, crying, and just, it was a terrible scene leading up to the funeral. And what I think is great is Miyuki, after seeing all this happen, actually sits down with both children and says, I know I can't be what I was. She is your true mother, but how would you like me to adopt you? Which I thought was very sweet and moving, because after all that happened with Miyuki and all that happens with I and them, it's really sweet that she wanted to step up and basically become the mother, though she's aware and putting into the children's minds that she'll never be I, and she gets that, which I think is great. After the events with I, Ichigo just vanishes off the face of the map, and you do not see him in episode 1. I'm not sure if he comes back later. I haven't read too much like into the manga. I'm on like chapter 23 or 4, working my way towards it because I'm just in love with this series now. And but as it stands, you don't see Ichigo for the remainder of that episode, and finally you end up in a car with both children, and Ruby was talking about how she wants to be an idol because her mom sparkled and she would also like to sparkle. But running through Aqua's mind is he's already died once already, and losing Ai is kind of like that second death in his eyes, that like there's no point for him to go on. But then it dawns upon him, how did the stalker find Ai? How would he have known about Ai's new address? After connecting all the dots, he realizes it's his dad's fault and not anybody else's, because that is the only person who was close enough to Ai to who would have figured out the address to their new house. And in his words, which I think is the coldest thing to ever come out of a child/adult's mouth, he is going to start his revenge play in hopes to kill his father and avenge the death of Ai Hoshino, which, coldest statement ever. So cold. So cold. This man said, I'm gonna go on a revenge tour just to find you and then kill you, no matter how hard it takes. I don't care if we're related by blood. I will kill you. Which I thought was the craziest sentiment to have. But as it's going into its final minutes of the episode, we witness an older Aqua and an older Ruby as they're going off for their first day of high school. Aqua impatiently rushes Ruby to hurry up with her outfit. They both are sitting by the door as Aqua lets her know, hey, your skirt's too small, which is kind of funny because it's like the older him coming out in this kind of younger but not too young body, because they're kind of right around, he's right around his age when he died. But yeah, they basically tell their mother they'll be off, which is just a picture of them when they were younger, and they are being held by Ai, which is a very touching sentiment before the end credits drop and his revenge play begins. which I think episode 2 takes place at the high school that they're going to be attending. And it was a roller coaster of an episode 1, but I truly loved it, and I can understand why episode 1 has such a high rating and why it's the highest rated on Mal, because this is Akka's one of his best works. I didn't know how he would do it. I went into this blind. I didn't know anything about Oshi No Ko leading into episode 1, leading into the premiere we saw at Anime Boston. I knew nothing, and what I left with was, oh my god, Akka Akasaka is that mangaka. He can write. This man is gifted at what he does, and I think Oshi No Ko is probably one of his best works, even though Kage is really good too. But in closing, I would say if you haven't watched episode 1 yet, please watch it. It's currently on High Dive. I would highly recommend watching it. Dub, sub, whatever you prefer. I'm a sub guy, but also if you're impatient like me and episode 1 wasn't enough to fill your palate, please read the manga. It's artistically beautiful. The dialogue and writing behind it from Akka is really good. Honestly, this is a worthwhile thing that I cannot wait for it to be picked up, hopefully for a season 2 or a season 3. I think I can't talk highly enough about this. I honestly really want to know what's happening. Will he find his dad? Will he actually kill him? What steps is he gonna take? I want to see how his revenge play plays out. I hope Kana makes a return. Kana is a great character who you learn about in episode 1 with an array of hats. Honestly, dripped out head to toe, quite frankly, but yes, in closing, I highly recommend Oshi No Ko. I couldn't recommend it enough. I am so appalled that I didn't know about this series sooner. And now that I do, I'm going to binge every single chapter of this series and every single episode and pray to the gods that it gets season 2, 3, and however many seasons it needs to wrap this beautifully. And I would like to say thank you, Akka Akasaka, for putting out another banger. This has been your boy, Bob Trees. Have a lovely day and stream Oshi No Peak. Thank you very much.